So anyway, this is, I hope you're not using that bit.
No, it's all good. I've just started filming, so just sanitize what you're saying now.
Okay, I'll do my best.
I'm here at Croakey Go Heatwave Health with Doug Lynch, the top end.
Yes,
Why are you called the top end, by the way?
It's actually, I wasn't living in the top end when I started that. So this whole Twitter thing went off, and even though I feel dirty about it, I got involved with Twitter because I was going down to a pre-runner to SMAC, right? And a certain chap called Min Lekong had convinced me that I should possibly go and record an interview, and he said, you have to get on Twitter, and so I did. And then I was going like, okay, I want a name, and I have a phrase that I use all the time, which is to give you an idea of like, and can I use a bad word here?
Yeah.
Okay, so if something's, you know, so basically, the phrase goes something like, you know, oh, look, on a scale of 1 to shit, it was up the top end. And it can be anything. If it's a scale of 1 to fantastic, it was up the top end. On a scale of 1 to, you know, a complete cluster, it was up the top end. And so that was the idea. And
so that's nothing to do with the Northern Territory.
It doesn't actually have anything to do with the Northern Territory, and it confused everybody because I was actually in Cape York at the time. But yeah, sorry Australians. I'm particularly sorry to the top end because I'm sure the government would like to have the hashtag or Twitter handle at the top end for their tourism. So it's available if you put an enormous amount of money into my charity. Anything over $1 million, and we can get talking.
So Doug,
yep.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and why you joined us here today on Croakey Go.
So my name is Doug Lynch. I am a medical doctor in various different areas of critical care, and I gotten very involved in medical education over the last few years. And as a result of that, I have stupidly volunteered to help out with the organisation of a very large medical conference that's coming up in Melbourne next year called CODA. CODAchange.org. CODAchange.org. And basically what it's trying to do is, it's not dissimilar to some of the things that you're trying to do, but it's trying to do them on a sort of big flashy kind of conference kind of scale. It's very much so the thing that comes after SMAC, which was called Social Media and Critical Care, but we were smart enough to work out that social media and critical care was limiting us, and people that want to do stuff around healthcare and changing the way healthcare works involves everybody, particularly primary care specialists and GPs. It's half of our community, blah. So what we're trying to do is essentially, it's like the tricky second album for SMAC, and is to try and draw together the people that are on the edges of medicine or in medicine that want to see things change. And we've asked that community what they want to talk about, and the first thing they wanted to talk about was climate change. So that's how I segue into coming in to see what you're doing here, because you guys are doing this whole concept of doing Croakey Go is this really imaginative, walking journalistic sort of intervention, which is a creative thing that I haven't seen anybody else doing anything like, and I really wanted to see how it looked. I wanted to meet you, I wanted to meet Melissa, and I wanted to see if there was a way that we can do something like that, use something like what you guys do at CODA. So that's why I'm here to try and steal your ideas, or possibly employ you, maybe.
Fantastic. Intellectual property.
Intellectual property, damn it. So patented Croakey Go. I told you to patent Croakey Go, didn't I?
That's true, it's too late. So Doug, what did you think about today?
I thought it was fantastic, and my favourite thing about it was that I think the potential of this type of intervention, there's a huge possibility of creating a network of interested people that wouldn't get a chance to meet each other otherwise. So there you are, I'm talking to the chap that does urban design, who's basically, you know, thinks an awful lot more about what trees can be planted where, and sort of creating shaded areas and repurposing parks and all this sort of stuff, which is a hugely important part of health. But how often will I, as a critical care doctor and so on, actually be talking to that person? Or the woman that's doing some suicide prevention stuff associated with a youth group here. Again, I'm aware of these people, but I actually got to meet them today. And there's and everybody was talking generally around the subject matter that I'm really interested in. So there's a fantastic message that these guys are putting out, and it's been repeated a couple of times, and hopefully it'll turn up in your things, that more people die from heat wave than from fires. We all talk about the fires. We all get very excited about the fires. They're very frightening, and they make some great pictures for the media outlets. But heat wave and an elderly person or an unsupported person dying in their home alone does not make a headline, but it's more people, and this is a really important thing to do. It also really spills almost seamlessly into all the stuff we really need to do around climate change, because the same concepts, the same things that you've got to think about in terms of keeping yourself cool in these, it brings forward all of the sort of things that we need to be thinking about, not just as ourselves as individuals or individuals that we care for, but also as a society. And all of these sort of things that we can do in terms of thinking about energy use, trying to think about the different things that we could be doing to keep our homes cool and so on, starts to think about, like, okay, well, why is it so hot, and do I really want to have the air conditioning unit on? And there's all sorts of aspects of it that are sort of secondary benefits. So it seems to me that getting people to talk about this actually kind of, it's like double or triple dipping. You're building a network, you're educating people, and you've also got this sort of situation whereby it's really reinforcing aspects of how climate change and how the problems that we're going to have with extreme weather events are going to affect really, really sort of tangible parts of our community. So climate change equals heat stress equals death. I mean, how much more of a message do you want, right? So, and that's been the repeated thing that we're getting out of everybody here, coming from completely different backgrounds, whether they're people that are working for the council or people that are working for Uniting, the sort of, welfare arm of the Uniting Church. And we had a person from a power company and so on, and that stuff's relevant. There was a fantastic question from somebody about how come you have to keep cutting the trees down around the power lines. Yes, that is a good question. Can we change that? Because what happens is the guys go in and they'll cut all of the tree down, so they have to come back much later. And but we could cut less of the tree down and therefore have more shade, because we're waiting 20 years for the tree to grow because the urban designers have popped it in. But if the power guy's going to come around and that's all contracted out, so even the power blah blah blah. It's multi-layered, it's complex, it's nuanced, and you're just not going to get it in a headline. So this was a fun experience.
So Doug, tell me about CODA.
Okay. So
can you tell me about CODA Arena?
I think I'm allowed to tell you about CODA, but I might have to, you have to burn this after reading. It's one of those situations. No, look, CODA is basically trying very hard to step into a space. Let's just step back for a second. Healthcare, the employees in the healthcare sector, when you add them all together, it's the biggest employee group in Australia, right? And in fact, almost everywhere around the world, right? In the OECD countries and all that sort of business, huge numbers of people. So we are doing things within healthcare, and I think that we have our own version of it's too big and we have no power and we can't make change and so on and so forth because I'm just a doctor or I'm just a nurse and I'm just trying to do my job. And there's plenty of us that are thinking that way about it. But we are this huge industry which involves a lot of people and a lot of waste. So even if we just focus on only what our industry does, we can potentially make significant changes. But I think what's also most important and most interesting is that in this situation is that we are having all these issues of people ignoring the climate science. We've got Greta Thunberg cooking around the world trying to tell people in power, I almost used a disparaging word there, but telling people in power that they just simply need to listen to the scientists, right? But they've got their own supporters and they're only interested in those supporters. But all of those supporters who vote for Donald Trump and ScoMo and so on and so forth also go and see their doctors, right? And their nurses and their paramedics. And at that point, they're actually listening to a scientist. The evidence-based. I mean, how many doctors are there denying climate change? Approximately zero, right? Or at least, how could they possibly get to where they are without doing it? So essentially, we have this sort of situation whereby I think we have a potential role, because within society, whether we want it to be that way or not, the medical profession, the nursing profession, and so on and so forth are the most respected professions. They're not believing the crap from the climate denialists. I think we have a role. We are the scientists that everybody needs. And I would like to see a situation whereby people kind of begin to feel like, look, we're a bit empowered around this, and I know that it's tricky. I'm not sort of saying that you need to be out there proselytizing to every single patient, but people do listen to the doctors and the nurses. They are the most trusted professions. Firemen, doctors, nurses, paramedics. We have a voice, so I'd like to hear it. That's what I want. So what CODA is trying to do is basically, it's still a medical conference. It's still going to be a multifaceted medical conference. 75% of it is not actually about climate change, but the big single extra super duper theme on the first one, which we're doing in Melbourne at the very end of September, so the 28th, 29th, 30th September, the 1st and 2nd of October next year at the conference centre, convention centre, and multiple other venues, is to have this as a major theme that runs the whole way through the conference, and a lot of effort and thought in and around what could be done in the medical world, using conferences. You've just been to the ACEM event down in Hobart, which really led the way. That was just fantastic. I didn't get to go, but I heard some fantastic things about it. There are ways of doing these things better. And CODA is trying to mobilize the people that come along to these conferences with a view to sort of saying, go back to your own community, but don't just go back and sort of, hey, I went to CODA, that was great, fantastic, here's a t-shirt. It's more along the lines of we want to be giving people achievable goals, which you can do on a personal level, on a home level, on a small practice level, perhaps on a hospital level, and each person can decide where exactly they want to expend their effort. And if you've got energy to spare, then there's a place to put it. We are not powerless. We actually have some power. You simply have to work out where you're going to put your own personal 2 bits in. And I'm hoping that we manage to convince more people that they should and can step up and do stuff.
And your part of the program, I suppose, is really focused on equity?
So I have been tasked with doing a number of different things. There's a lot of people involved, and like all of these things, almost nobody's getting paid, and it's just medical education. It's just kind of the nature of these things. I have been given a task with a woman called Christine Bowles, who's the head of trauma at the Royal North Shore Hikers, who is moving house yesterday in the heat in Sydney and the smoke. So there you go. What we're doing is we're doing something which was never done at SMAC, which is basically what we're calling a CODA E20. So essentially what we're trying to do is gather together all of the different organizations, all of the different groups, that are interested in equity in their own special interest area, right? Now, they're still part of the great big healthcare community, but they've got something going on. So the most hilarious one is women, right? It's about majority of the health workforce, but somehow a minority group. So, get your head around that. But anyway, that's the biggest and most conspicuous one, and we have various different sort of groups that are concerned with and working to improve gender equity issues that we have in healthcare. And so we want them to have their own sort of event associated with CODA, like the guys called Now EM and Feminine managed to do at Sydney last year, earlier this year at the very last SMAC. So that was very successful, and it was very much its own thing, and that was something we didn't want to sort of have a situation where CODA would impose on these groups. We want these people to have their own event of their own style, be in charge of it, decide what they're talking about, decide who they're inviting, and essentially be quite independent. And if we can essentially bring in as many different groups and accommodate them, give them some sort of support, help promote them to differing degrees depending on what they want and so on, and have them have these activist groups, the people that are actually doing stuff, the people that are doing stuff all the time, not just at one particular event, that are organising. They've got committees, they've got friends, they've got networks, and so on and so forth, and sort of invite them along to this large collection of what I think are quite motivated doctors, nurses, and paramedics. And hopefully they will get their message out. Hopefully they will get some new members, but we're also interested in listening to them. And then it all comes together on the last session of all of the workshops beforehand. There's about 40 workshops happening before CODA, so it doesn't matter what you're into, there's something there for you. But the thing that I'm really interested in is this sort of a forum of the different people that are involved in minority, or in the case of gender, majority subgroups, and to see how can we put this together, because I'm totally against the zero-sum argument. I just don't agree with this idea that we can't be thinking about racism until we've got gender sorted, or vice versa. I think that we actually have a whole load of things which are parallel, things that we're actually working towards that are together, and if we can sort of see what things we have that we all agree on, or at least help us form networks and learn from each other, I think that we can potentially empower things alongside and in addition to the climate change thing which CODA is trying to do. And then there's the great big sort of obvious and significant concrete outcome, is that the first CODA, the theme is climate change, but the second CODA, the theme is equity, right, and ethics, and so on and so forth. So whatever we get out of this forum, whatever we get out of these groups that we're hoping to bring along to CODA this time, is going to be what we're talking about at the next one. So they will literally be a big part of feeding information in about what the really interesting activists that are already doing stuff, they're the people we should listen to when we're trying to talk about this stuff, right? So that's basically get the experts in the room, see what they've got to say, and then do it. That's kind of the plan.
So how are you going to achieve this, Doug?
Yeah. Okay. So we can. There's a couple of, first of all, we have to achieve it by reaching out to the various different sort of the existing groups, right? So we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. I'm not here to tell somebody that's involved in LGBTQIA these are the things you need to talk about. I want to hear what they have to say. So by making it really clear that there's an open invitation and listening to what people want to do, and try to get them to come along. The way I describe it is like Glastonbury, right? So you've got a big festival, right? Massive festival, in this case, of equity issues in and around medicine and ethical issues in and around medicine. But no one tells Radiohead what they're playing, right? Nobody tells, Paul McCartney, Paul, you can't come unless you do such and such a song. It doesn't work like that, right? What you have is that person gets to sort of say their own thing. So we simply want to accommodate them. We create the stage, we bring the crowd, and they play their songs, they play their message, they do their own thing. That's what I'm trying to create, and make an environment where these people feel like they can dip in here and do their own thing and don't feel like they are being told what to do. That's like herding cats. So it's not easy to do, but I think it's worth doing, because I think the alternative is if we try and do some sort of equity thing because I think we should, or we think we should, or whatever else, that's just not the way to go about this. So it is going to be a challenge. And everybody will want to do different things, but I want to engage with that because everybody is different, right? We should celebrate difference. But if there is a way that we can actually have these people in the same sort of space, the same sort of time, and they come together at this special forum event on the last Tuesday, which we are designing in a very special way, whereby interaction with the crowd is going to be a huge part of what we do. So we're going to put an enormous amount of effort. Hopefully you've been to events whereby, like, the panel at the end actually turned into a great big toing and froing with interested people in the audience. Doesn't always happen well, but when it does happen, it's one of the best things that can happen. Because then you actually get these new thoughts. It's not something that's scripted. It's not somebody that sort of practiced it 20 times to the mirror and so on and so forth. It is like somebody asks a question, and someone goes like, "I haven't thought of that before," and then they try to work out what they could do with it. And toing and froing. So we'll probably have something like, at the moment, in my mind, it's going to be about 1/3 of the time will be spent with a very, very developed interaction with audience approach, so that the people that come along to the forum are part of the show. They are part of the brains. It's the brains trust. The people on the stage are almost there in order to get stuff out of the audience. And I would hope that we'd have about 250 people, right, all of whom will be genuine specialists in their own area, and we'll see what we can get at them. And if we do nothing other than connect the people in the room to other people in the room, well, then I'll be happy with that. But I think we can actually get a bit more out of them. We're almost certainly going to put it on in Federation Square, this part of CODA, because CODA has already filled, in terms of the planning that's got, in terms of the convention centre is full, all of it. So we actually need to get another venue. So there's going to be thousands of people here, and I think that they're a self-selecting bunch of motivated people with a moral compass that works. And I think they're an interesting bunch of people to talk to. You should come.
I might be there. And CODA Melbourne is just the first of a few events?
Yes, so CODA is the plan for the CODA is for it to be a 4-event series. So the first one is going to be in Melbourne, 2020. The second one is going to be in Northern Europe. The venue is not confirmed yet. There's been a couple of different ideas bounced around, but it's going to be somewhere cool, and probably somewhere where there's a lot of people that are involved in something like FOMED. So we're talking about Britain's a candidate, Scandinavia, there's a couple of places and so on and so forth. So wait to look out for that one. The third one, that's the ethics and equity one. The third one is about cure. So we're particularly focused on tropical diseases and antibiotic stewardship and that sort of issues and so on. And we want to put that not in some random Western sort of society, we want to put that in Thailand, right, or somewhere up where it's an issue, right, because this is, the world's healthcare community is not a whole bunch of, white people from, waspy countries and so on and so forth that were colonized by Europeans. There's a lot of other versions of this. So we need to listen to those people. They're the experts, right, because they're working knee deep and neck deep in trouble, right? And then the fourth one is about education, which will probably be in the Americas somewhere. Exactly where, again, I can't tell you because it's secret. But actually, I don't think they've decided yet. No, so there's basically a plan of doing this over 4, because those are the 4 things when they surveyed all the people who went to SMAC who said, don't close SMAC down, we love it. So that we actually asked them what they wanted to talk about, and those are the 4 biggest items. So it is a sort of a reverse conference, and it's not exactly an unconference. The bit that I'm doing will be quite unconferenced, in that it'll be, the crowd will be the best bit. And across the board, it'll be the same. It'll be trying to build on the things that they did so well at SMAC in terms of having a very well produced. You're getting a top end experience in terms of the food will be fantastic, the whole entertainment will be fantastic. What you see on stage will be done really, really well. You won't get bored. There will be laughter and there will be tears. There's always crying at these events because we get these real kind of heartstring pluckers up on stage, and they just, you will be crying. I cry at everyone. So it's because they have messages. They've got messages they need to get out. So we won't only be using science. We'll be using narrative. We'll be using young voices and be using old voices. It won't be all healthcare people up on stage talking to you about healthcare stuff. It'll be a lot of other people. Some of whom people will know because some of them are quite well. They're activists in their own area, but some of them will be people that you haven't come across yet. And every single time we've done SMAC, we've found some really interesting new talent, people that I'd never heard of. I must admit, I think there was a young slam poet, Kashmiri woman, at the SMAC in Berlin, which was an amazing experience. And I'm just desperately trying to remember her full name, and I can't remember, but you can put this in the show notes. But she basically stood up at this sort of fantastic talk about watching someone do a thoracotomy in a car park, about this kid that got stabbed in London, which of course is a proper public health issue in London and so on. But she had the whole room in the palm of her hand. She was still a medical student, so there's a role in this for everybody. So she's there, 3,000 people or whatever it was in the room, delivering a poem on her own, on stage, in a circular room. That one was like a full-on type event. So CODA is trying to basically give people a voice, right? And the better people, if we can get the right voices on stage, it'll be a huge success.
Well, good luck with it. Looking forward to it. It's going to be exciting.
Well, indeed, and hopefully make some change.